Hello class, this is Nicholas Holmes, and this is my presentation on PHP filter input functions and filter types. The filter input function is used to get an external variable. In our situation, we may be using it to get username and password for the sign-in form for our site. The filter input function will validate the variable in a safe manner. When using filter input function, we must specify the function type. This is a required parameter. The available parameters are the input get, input post, input cookie, input server, and input environment. We must also specify the function variable name that is to be checked. Here you'll see an example of a filter input showing a function type of input post and the variable name of client first name. There are also optional parameters that can be used. These include validate filters, sanitize filters, other filters, and filter flags. I'll be focusing on validate and sanitize filters for this presentation. Validate filters can be used to validate that information the user passed is the type of data we requested. For example, in a login form, if we request that the username is entered as an email address, we can use the validate filter to confirm what is passed conforms with the syntax of RFC 822, meaning it is a valid email address format. Other validate filters include Boolean, domain name, integer, IP address, MAC address, and URL. Here's an example of a filter input function. We have the required input post parameter or whatever parameter you want, but in this case we're using post. We have the variable name client email, and then I have a filter validate email parameter set as well. That way it validates that the data is in proper email address format. Sanitize parameters. Sanitize filters can be used to remove or strip characters that are passed. For example, it can be used to remove tags or special characters. In this example, I have the filter input post client last name, but I have it filter sanitize string. So that way it removes like HTML tags so they can't be passed. Users make mistakes. We want to make sure we're getting the correct input from the user. Using validate and sanitize filters also protects ourselves from bad actors trying to use SQL injection, cross-site scripting, or other attacks. Validate and sanitize filters are forms of security that we can use to protect our applications and databases. Now I'm going to give an example, a demo. Here I've created this demo PHP file. I took some information that I got from W3 Schools on this function and did some modifications, and have 3 different forms here. My first one is a form to get an email address. I have the type as input type is text, and come down here as I use my filter input for email, I'm having it validate that it's a proper email address. If it passes that test, then you'll see a message that says email is valid. If it fails that test, it'll say email is not valid. The next is a form to get a username. In this example, it's going to sanitize the string and remove invalid characters or check for invalid characters. Here, if it passes, it'll say username is in a valid format, and if it fails, it'll have an invalid character message. Lastly, I do a combination of filtering, sanitizing, and validating filters. And this is to get the year. I have the input set to get year, and then it will check, it will sanitize it, and then validate it. And I have it set to show the year that's input, And then if it's valid, it'll say the year is valid. And if it's invalid, it'll say the year has invalid characters. And here are those three forms. So first, I'll do test. And you see test is not valid. It's not a valid email. Well, let's do test at test. Again, you can see it's showing test at test. It's not valid. So let's do test at test.com. And that's valid. Username. We'll do hello for the username. Oh, that's valid. But what if we do hello inside of some tags? Oh, that's invalid. And lastly, we'll test the year. So we'll do 2020. We can see that it showed the year and says the year is valid. But let's just try 2020 as text. Oh, that's not valid. There are no numbers. But with the combination of them, let's say I do 2020 this way. I have it. It will strip off the text and just leave the numbers using the combination of the two. We can use this, as I said, to make sure that we're getting the data that we want from users and that it is safe for us for using security in these layers upon layers to make sure we don't have bad actors trying to harm our applications and databases. And this concludes my presentation. Thank you.